welcome everybody here. So
Hi.
we'll move on with the class on white magic. We're still on rule 14, and we're talking about rays and prana, and about the energies. When we left off talking about energies, and there's several key words, kind of sequential. There's a type of energy, there's the quality of the energy, there's the strength, and then there's the speed. Now these few words have a lot of meaning in that we could probably spend days talking about, but we'll move on here. He says, understanding the type of energy will reveal the force and the rays involved. A person needs to discover the rays of his personality and soul and the centers involved. Now, as I've talked about the rays to the classes before, people who are interested in how they can find their rays. And unfortunately, he doesn't give a method to do that outside of understanding what the 7 rays are, and then understanding how you might relate to them. There's 2 rays that are particularly important to know, and that is your personality and your soul ray. Your personality is projects your influence in the world, and it will be centered on one of these rays more than the others. Now, all the rays have an influence on us, and just like the 12 astrological signs, each one of the rays is chock full of meaning about different qualities that come from them. And so your personality will be on a certain ray. Like my personality is ray 5. Who can tell me what ray 5 is?
It's
Science,
detailed knowledge.
Yeah. 2 people talking at once. Ed, you want to say it?
Well, it's an array of detailed knowledge and science. It's more of a detailed knowledge ray.
Right. My personality gravitates to this. I've been interested in science from the time I was a kid and the scientific approach to things. So that's my personality. So then you have your soul ray, which is a higher ray still. And when a person is in his personality, in his beginning to the end of his evolution, he's influenced most by the personality ray. And then as he achieves soul contact, he has additional influence coming to him from the ray that influences his soul. And the influence from my soul is on ray 2. Okay, so that gets me more interested in, instead of just being black and white and researching and taking the scientific method, that causes me to incorporate love and wisdom into science, mixed with science. And that's a good description of my approach. And then above this is your spiritual monad, and your monad is your originating, for want of a better word, it's your originating spirit that is higher than your soul. Just like we are connected to our souls are connected to the originating spirit or monad. And it's also on a ray. It's on one of the primary rays, 1, 2, or 3. Who can tell us really briefly what 1, 2, and 3 is? I bet you Annie can.
Ray 1 is aware of divine will.
Ray 1 is divine will. That's good.
Ray 2 is love, wisdom.
That's right.
and the ray 3 is active intelligence.
Okay, and that's exactly right. And so your monad is on one of these three originating rays. And so understanding, most people are not much influenced by the originating ray until they reach near the end of their evolution. But I would say that everybody in this group gets some influence from their solar ray. Okay, so when you think back to your personality ray and your soul ray, what you can do is think back to when you were a kid growing up, like as a teenager, you were probably mostly influenced by your personality ray. And then there was probably a time in your life where that which influenced you seemed to change. You were interested in one thing in one direction, and then you kind of encountered a spiritual shift. And think back to your life when this spiritual shift occurred and what direction it took you, and that will give you a clue as to what your soul ray is. Can anyone here think of a time in their life, maybe think back to when you're a teenager, you're kind of more frivolous and you're interested in certain things, and then you encountered a shift in a spiritual direction? Can anyone kind of relate to that happening when they were younger? We picked on you last time, Annie. We'll pick on you again here. Are you there? There you go.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think so. I think I didn't think very much about spiritual stuff. I mean, I like gardens, and I was kind of religious as a kid, but
I bet you were always well behaved. You just look like you were never a problem with anybody.
yeah, well, I was.
Were you like
Well,
the teacher's pet in the class? The teacher thought, boy, everybody here needs to be like Annie.
yeah, that was kind of the thing, but you know, that was just the outer me. That was just the face I showed them, because
Yeah,
whenever I had the chance, I would just do it my own way.
yeah, you can
I
tell
never
you're
knew that.
independent, but a lot more independent than you look.
Yeah, right. So,
Anyway,
but yeah,
tell us then about how you made the shift then.
I think when I started meditating, that was when my eyes, or actually it was when I got a book. I think I told everybody once that I grew up and I felt like grown-ups, they have a secret. I don't know what it is, but there's something they're not telling me. And I got this book when I was in the beginning of my 20s or something, 20 maybe.
Yeah.
And it was about reincarnation. And that changed the way I looked at life, and it changed the way I thought, and I started seeking more seriously about what's out there, what else.
So
Yeah.
have you got an idea what your personality ray may be?
Yeah, I think it's the second ray, my personality ray.
And what do you think your soul ray is?
Well, you said, you gave me a clue once, and I really couldn't see it at that time, but since then I think I've seen it more clearly. I think it's the first ray.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay, well, good. Anybody else have a comment on that idea that they kind of had a shift when they were younger?
Well, first of all, I don't think I was ever frivolous.
Yeah, I don't
guess,
think Annie was ever frivolous either, actually. She's, but we were all a lot more frivolous when we were teenagers than we are now for, or say, frivolous isn't the right word. We were all took things less seriously.
Happy-go-lucky.
Yeah, more happy-go-lucky when we didn't think deeply as we do now, probably. Anyway, go ahead, Pam.
I think the most frivolous thing I did was a cheerleader, and I didn't know up from down about football. And I just run out there and cheer when everybody else did. But I think I told the Tuesday night group, my husband was in law school at the University of Chicago, So I started studying Plato and Aristotle, and then I said, thank God there was somebody that believed in what I believed. And that kind of set me on the quest. And when we moved from Chicago to Charlotte, I went downtown, Crocs and Bertano's, the largest bookstore in Chicago, and I bought every metaphysical book to
Wow.
bring with me because I didn't know, we both grew up in Southern Ohio, and our family.
How old were you there?
24, 25
Yeah.
when we moved from Chicago to Charlotte. But I bought all the books, but I did connect up with a metaphysical group shortly after I arrived here. So I've always been pretty serious, and I was told that I came in on the second ray, but that my colors were pink and blue. And I was probably told that about 30 years ago, but most of my house is decorated in deep reds and royal blues. So I know pink is healing and blue is for communication.
And blue is the color of an advanced soul.
So I've always been serious and always wanted to know more.
Okay. Real good. DK says that by studying your actions and speech, you can better understand the types of energies you use. So we examine ourselves and find how we, what kind of energies we're on. Now, finding your rays is a little bit like figuring out what sign you might be under when you don't know your birthday. Would be kind of hard. I've found quite often, though, I've been able to guess a person's sign after I get to know him a little bit, and I think I'm right about half the time, because you different people under different astrological signs are do give off certain energies that you can pick up. Now, the difficult thing with astrology, though, is you have the sun sign is only about maybe 25 to 30% of the influence of the total, because you have the moon, your rising sign, your houses, and all kinds of other different influences in there. So astrology is really very complicated. The rays are a little bit more simple. There are just 7 of them, and their influence is very powerful, so we can learn to pick them up. Now, the best way to pick it up is if you get a revelation from your soul or something, then you can know for sure. But barring that, it's quite possible to pick up just by studying the rays. And we might have, after we finish this, it might be a good idea to have some classes on the rays to make sure everybody's more familiar with them and how they relate to astrology. Now, one of the things you can do is go through your astrology signs. Oh, I got the wrong book here. And correlate them to the rays. For instance, your personality ray is has some is symbolic of your sun sign. So like if your sun sign is in Pisces or Aquarius or Taurus or whatever, you look up the rays there, and the rays in that sign will be strong in you. It may not be your personality ray. It may be, now you have other parts of your body dominated by different rays. Your mind is dominated by a certain ray, your emotions by another ray, and your physical body by still another ray. So the rays of your astrological sign will be give you an indication of the rays that influence your personality. Now, in esoteric astrology, you have other rays that influence that, and you look at the planets and their associating rays that influence the esoteric side that DK gives out, and that gives some indication of the rays that influence your soul. Now, the 7 rays together are always at play, but there's always one that's dominant. Like in your personality, say my personality is on ray 5, yet all the 7 rays have some influence in my personality, but ray 5 has the most influence. So as far as just my personality, what I present to the world, so to speak. Now, in ray 2, on where my soul is, and it's the same thing. All the rays are at play, but ray 2 is the most potent as far as linking my soul and personality together. Okay, so anyway, studying astrology and linking it to the rays can give you information on that, and I'm probably going to write a treatise on that eventually, linking astrology with the rays. I don't know if anyone's ever done that before.
Let me show you something here. This ray,
Yeah.
this book by Alan Oken,
Yeah.
is called Soul-Centered Astrology. And he was a student of esoteric astrology and the DK work. And
Does he link the rays and to the?
Yeah, he goes into detail of the rays and the planets and how the planetary rays affect your soul rays and all this stuff. And if you're going to write something, you might want to first read Alan Oken's book.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that. Thanks, Ed.
It's called Soul-Centered Astrology.
Is it a pretty good book, you think?
It is a pretty good book. I attended several of his courses, and I find him to be a very good teacher.
Okay. Okay, well, thanks, Ed. I'll take note of that.
Somebody had posted a website back when we first started up this group here, where you could enter in your birth date and location and whatnot, and it'd give you a list of your monad, soul, personality, astral, mental, and physical rays.
You know, I bet something like that still exists. If you're good at Googling, you can find almost anything. Why don't you try to find that again, Rick, and post it in the molecular group?
It was something that somebody in the molecular group posted, and I went there and I checked out myself and my current working partner, and it just lists, and it's like I don't necessarily understand how they can think. Like it says my mental is second ray. When you talk about what ray is a person, are you normally talking about their personality or the monad, or?
Well, when you just say when you just single out one ray for a person, you're just talking about the ray that he's being influenced by at the moment. Normally, his personality ray. Like with you, Rick, I would guess your ray of your mind would be perhaps ray 5, and your personality perhaps ray 3. That's just kind of a guess.
My personality, according to this thing, was 6th ray, and the mental was 2nd ray, which is like, oh, that somehow that doesn't. I don't know. Maybe it's wrong, or maybe I'm just not coming across how I really am.
Yeah, I took it myself, and it was, I think, about half right on me.
Yeah, you're more scientific, Rick. More 5th ray than 6th ray, I would think.
Yeah, his mind is, I think, 5th ray, because his mind is really on calculating things out, you know. And
And maybe some fourth ray. You've got a very strong creative, artistic bent as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe he's got, his personality could be fourth ray.
Yeah.
Because he's very interested in the creative side. Have you figured out your race, Curtis?
Well, I think my soul ray is 3, and my personality ray maybe 6. Maybe 6. But I have a lot of 7th ray energy too, of business and social expansion.
Yeah, maybe your mind's 7th ray, huh?
Mine could be 7th ray. I think my soul ray is 3rd ray, active intelligence.
Yeah.
There is a particular questionnaire from the University of the Seven Rays. It was called the PIP, the PIP. And in that, they ask you about half a dozen pages of questions, and they give you a chart of all of these rays.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. That's one thing DK did that's pretty original. People have made brief mention of the rays in the past, but he's the first one to give detailed explanation of the rays and how they work. I just wish there were just some simple formula that we could tell for sure whatever all the rays are in everybody. I guess if you're a master, you have ways to pick it up by supernatural means. But for us ordinary humans, we have to kind of study it out until we can kind of figure it out, unless you get some revelation on it. Okay, any other comment on the rays before we move on there?
Yeah, in his book, Rays and Initiations, does he go into astrology in that book at all?
A little bit, mainly esoteric astrology goes into the rays and astrology, and in a little bit more, especially astrology part in more detail, but the rays and initiation are good on the rays. But he talks about the rays off and on throughout all of his books. He gives a little bit more information. But
So should we be reading that book? I have it, but I haven't read it in a long time.
well, it depends. We not really signing anything. The main thing for this class is the white magic right now on rule 14, and see what page we're on. Right around page 575 or something like that. Yeah. Okay, it says here, if the student is using the first ray, he will be attempting to influence minds. He's talking about rays and energies and prana and how we relate according to our rays. So he'll use his energies to influence mind. And this, he says, has a lower and higher approach. So the lower approach for the first ray person is if somebody is in your way, then you try to eliminate him, and you don't care if you create harm or not. You just solve the problem by force, and that's the lower way. Like Stalin was a first ray personality. So if somebody got in his way, he just had to eliminate it. Didn't care about his feelings or anything like that. The positive aspect of the first ray use is to use it to forcefully create change or control the situation, but in a way that produces more good than harm. For instance, let's say a burglar is going to enter your home. Well, we have forces in control that we want to capture that guy, kicking and screaming to prison against his will. Okay, but that's for the good of the whole. Okay, so first ray energy forces a good outcome against the will of people that are just in the way of making that happen. And so There's a positive use of first ray energy and a negative use. Now, another person that was on first ray energy was Abraham Lincoln. And he used that first ray energy to conquer the South and eliminate slavery. And he violated the will of the southern states that wanted to keep the slaves. And but the end was good, because it was a positive use of the first ray energy. Stalin was a negative use of the first ray energy. And Germany at the time that Hitler took over was on the first ray, so he used a lot of first ray energy in a negative way also. Okay, if he's using the second ray, so you might think in your personal life, how can I use the first ray energy in a positive way? We kind of use it when we're raising our kids too. When they do something wrong, we have to use a certain amount of force to force them to into an action to do the right thing. And so it's interesting to think of how we can use the actual force of first ray energy in a positive way. And this is very difficult. This is why he says there's many first ray souls that haven't really incarnated yet, because it would be too produce too much potency on the planet. And so it's more, we have a lot more second ray souls coming in, because the first ray souls are, unless they're highly evolved, too many of them create danger for the humanity. Because what they do is when they see something in the way, they just want to eliminate it. And so now Trump is strong on first ray, and that's why he creates so much conflict and disturbance, because the people that really don't like him are on are more 2, 4, 6 ray. And so that's an interesting thing. And what the mistake people make is they look at rays that are influences that are different than themselves, and they will judge them as being evil when really they're just different. So on the second ray, it says if he's using second ray, he will use love, empathy, and wisdom on the higher, or a selfish longing to be like, and a sentiment and attachment for the lower. So you have a lower and higher on the second ray of love, wisdom. The higher, empathy, wisdom, love, and then the lower, longing to be like. He's sentimental. He gets attached too much to things that he likes, and can't get out of it. Now, in the third ray, he says he'll work with, on the positive, he'll work with a plan and wield the third ray force to bring about loving purposes of the spiritual reality. He will be busy and active, and his word will carry truth. He will lead to the helping of others, and they will be detached and true. That's if he's positive, and that's on the third ray. If negative, he'll be selfish, devious in his propositions, subtle, elusive in his arguments, manipulative in his relations with his fellow men, and he will be an interfering busybody trying to manage other people's lives. You ever encountered anyone that wants to manage everybody else's lives? Well, that's a third ray guy that's on the wrong side of the third ray. Now, Curtis said you're a strong third ray with you. Well, let's look at the positive aspects, see if you fit in here. Yeah, he tries to wield the plan. Curtis is always trying to figure out what the plan is and do it, so that's good. He'll be busy and active. His word will carry truth. He'll try to be detached. Okay. You're detached from everything except that dog. One dog that you had, you were really attached to it. I remember that, Curtis.
I still think
He lost a dog one time. He was more upset than I think than I've ever seen him.
It was a standard female poodle, black. I bought her when she was 6 weeks old and had her for 3 years, and just, yeah, well, she was a love poodle.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm pretty detached. I get strongly connected to some people. The work mostly. My strong connection.
Okay, he says, one of the masters said, let me, I've lost my next page of notes. Where'd the devil to go?
There's 7 rays, but there's also 49 sub-rays, and even though we may have a particular ray makeup, but there are all those sub-rays that we have access to.
Yeah. Well, next he goes into working with the hands. And one of the masters says, it is but with an armed hand and ready to either conquer or perish that the modern mystic can hope to achieve his object. So an armed hand, anybody read the chapter know what that means? What's an armed hand?
An empty hand.
Wow, I can't believe you got that, Curtis. That's great. Yeah, the armed hand is an empty hand, and it protects its possessor from accusations of his enemies. It's a hand freed from the taint of the 4 symbolic evils: gold, lust, the dagger, and the finger of enticement. It's an interesting thing. So why is the armed hand then, the empty hand and armed hand, a powerful hand?
Well, you're not weighted down with a lot of garbage.
Right, you're not weighted down, and there's nothing to accuse the person of. In other words, if your hand carries a dagger, then people can say, hey, you're a danger to people, or you're a threat. But if your hand carries nothing, yet your mind is full of wisdom as to how to proceed, then you're a danger to your enemies, because your enemy has nothing to accuse you of. And this is a mistake that Trump makes. He always comes across as being armed, whereas he would be much more powerful if he presented himself with an empty hand, and so that he's no threat to anyone. And this is the same thing with any leader that wants to accomplish anything, especially those that are on the first ray. He must come forth with an empty hand. In other words, he has nothing that can threaten anyone except in their own imagination. And yeah, people's imaginations pretty much fill in the gaps. Like Jesus was completely non-threatening, but did people feel threatened?
Some did.
Yeah, they felt really threatened, didn't they? Because what's called, what's the symbol of the truth in the scriptures?
The sword.
Right, the two-edged sword is the symbol of truth. And so if you have truth, you have an empty hand, but if your soul is full of truth, you have a great sword and a great power to that will feel threatening to many people. And because even though your hand is empty, the truth is a powerful sword that's a spiritual weapon that's in your hands. So it's interesting.
Along those lines, in the early days, that's why they'd shake hands. You'd have to pull your hand out of your coat and reveal it.
He says you have 4 symbolic evils that you can have in your hand that we shouldn't have. The first is gold. In other words, wealth. If you have a lot of wealth and you're using it as a weapon, what will happen? People will come after you and try to take your gold from you, right? So, but if in your hand you appear to not have anything to steal, then what will they come after? There's nothing for them to come after except in their imagination. Okay. Second is lust. Is if people feel that you want what they have, then they will be threatened by you. If are you married, Solomon?
Yeah,
Okay, so
I'm
if
married.
somebody's lusting after your wife, you're going to feel a little nervous, right?
Exactly.
Right. So this is something you don't want to see in somebody's hand. You don't want to see that lust after
Yeah.
your spouse, lust after your goods, your
Mhm.
things you work for, your reputation, or whatever. You don't want to see that. And the second is, or the third is the dagger. So the dagger is a symbol of the idea that you are some type of obvious threat. In other words, we watch these TV shows where somebody says, "Oh, I saw you did something wrong and I'm going to go tell the boss on you." Okay, well, that's pretty dumb of the guy to do that, because he can go tell the boss without first telling the bad guy. And the bad guy finds out, "Oh, you're going to go tell the police or the boss on me, then I'm going to kill you." Okay, so that's really a dumb move for the guy to make in the movies, that they always make that stupid mistake. And that when they do that, I always think, if I was going to tell the police on somebody, I wouldn't go tell them, announce it to them first that I'm going to go do that. But these dumb people on these shows do that. But so, in other words, you don't let people see that you have a dagger, that you have something on them that can hurt them. Okay. And so this is what this is part of creating the correct armed hand. And the fourth is the finger of enticement. So that's interesting, the finger of enticement. So enticing people to do something that's harmful. So we watch these movies again. These movies have all these things, like in these gangster movies, the guy is enticed into the gang because of money and power and wealth, or maybe acceptance, or so he's enticed into doing the wrong thing. Okay, so that's interesting. So if we're free from all these things, so when people meet us, they don't see any of those things in your hand. You don't have any wealth they want. You don't want anything from them. You don't present any threat to them. You're not going to report them to the police or to the IRS or anything like that. And you're not trying to convince them to do something that's wrong or that will hurt them. Your hand is armed. And when your hand is armed, you will then be a person that is able to wield spiritual power. Okay? In all forms of esoteric teaching, he says, the hands play a great part, and this for 4 reasons. They are the symbol of acquisitiveness. Okay, so the hand reaches out and grabs stuff, picks apples from the tree, does things to make you money. They're centers of force. Now, we have 7 main centers of force, but then I think there's like about 23 minor centers, and 2 of these is in the palms of the hand. And through the palms of the hand is our mediums of transferring force from one person to another. And a popular modern method of doing this is through Reiki. Is anyone into Reiki that's in the group here?
I did it 30 years ago.
Oh, did you? Okay. Yeah. How does Reiki work then? Why don't you tell us really quick?
Well, I've kind of moved on to quantum healing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've read that book. A book on that is pretty interesting some time ago.
Reiki is laying on of hands, basically. There's a lot of emphasis on.
Yeah, they just lay their hands on people and just let the energy flow, and a lot of people benefit. They don't have to really put a lot of force or thought into it. Just let the energy flow through their hands, and a lot of people feel a lot of benefit from that.
And done over distance too. You don't have to be in the same room with them.
Yeah, Mindy and Melba are both into it, and they can heal, remote healing they call it.
Yeah, I know Melba was into it. She's not here today.
Yeah.
Mindy's into it too.
Yeah, Mindy got her and Melba into it, I think. Mindy's good.
I used to do it on my dog. I had a black poodle.
Oh, did you? Yeah. Okay. The hands are also wielders of the sword, and we kind of just talked about that, where the empty hand, it's empty, but when it's empty of all these four symbolic evils, then it's capable of handling the sword of truth, so to speak. And truth is a sword of a totally different kind. And Jesus had the sword of truth in his hand. He didn't have anything else. He didn't have any money or anything that anybody wanted. He didn't lust after anything. He didn't have a dagger. He wasn't trying to entice anyone to do anything crazy or that would be harmful anyway. But he had the truth. And so it was a different type of sword. And some people did pick up that, and it scared them. Okay. And they are, when employed unselfishly, he says, instruments for healing and agencies whereby certain keys are turned. So that's interesting. Agents whereby certain keys are turned. Now, why does he say that?
Well, keys are knowledge. So if you have clean hands, and goes with clean hands and a pure heart, then you're probably more receptive to the light of your soul and receive keys of knowledge that you can turn and apply in group consciousness, day-to-day living, on your path down the road. That'd be my interpretation.
Yeah, I think he talks about that a little bit more. But yeah, there's certain things, certain symbolism, like in our meditation we did earlier, raising the hands above the head and so on. There's certain symbols you can make with the hands that communicate with the David lives and the spiritual energies and the soul, and that turns certain keys to open certain doors also.
How about certain handshakes? Can you use that?
Yeah, and many of the esoteric organizations, they have different symbols through the hands, handshakes, and different types of symbolism that's exchanged for certain things. And both the dark and the light side use these things. Yes. There are a lot of people associate anything type of handshake and so on with the dark side, but both the light and the dark use a lot of the same symbols. But it's just like money. Money can be used for good or evil, and symbols can be used for good or evil too. So that's
yeah. I was just thinking talking about the hand. how is it related to the passage in the Bible that talks about the mark of the beast on the right hand? Can we relate it to this teaching?
Yeah, the mark of the beast on the right hand, the right hand is symbolic of labor. And so, like, say, acquisitiveness, what you're doing to make a living, is one of the symbols of it. And so the mark of the beast on the right hand symbolizes that your ability to make a living is controlled by an authority outside of yourself. Okay, so people that are self-employed are able to escape the mark to a degree, but not completely. You know, we're all influenced by that mark of the beast, so to speak. We all have these outside influences that control how we make money. Okay, and what we do with it and our actions. And so if your actions are controlled by outside forces, and it's also symbolic of those that control you on a spiritual level. Those that control you have the mark of the beast. It's in two places, your hand and your forehead.
Okay.
Your forehead is symbolic of your thinking in the Bible there. Your right hand is symbolic of your actions. So when you have a person like a priest, a prophet, or a king, or a ruler that controls your actions, you have the mark of the beast in your right hand. If he controls what you think, then you have the mark of the beast in your forehead. So if everything you think is like if you're into something like Scientology and everything you think is governed by what they've told you, then you have the mark of the beast in the forehead. Okay, if you go out and do nothing but try to convert people to Scientology, then and you're just doing what you're told, then you have the mark of the beast in your right hand. Okay, now this happens all over, and it says in the book of Revelations there that all kindreds, tongues, and people pretty much will be subject to this mark, and it's very difficult to get out of it. And then it talks about 144,000 that instead of having the mark of the beast in the forehead, they have the name of God in their forehead. Okay, so having the name of God in your forehead means for your authority, you look within your own self to find what governs your actions and what governs your thinking, and that's what decides it. And that's the 144,000 versus 7 billion. So it's just a handful of people escape it. That 144,000 is a symbolic number, but it's symbolic in the fact that it's a small number in relation to the whole.
Mm-hmm.
And
666 is also the in gematria. It's the male as opposed to female.
Yeah. Okay, I did.
In the labors of Hercules,
go ahead.
In the labors of Hercules, before he begins his labors, he has to cut all the cords with authority. He slays his teachers. He has to learn how to think for himself, stand on his own 2 feet, and all through the labors, he's governed by the light that shines in the seat of his soul. So that's a labor. It's not an easy thing. You don't just snap your fingers and say, well, I'm a free spirit. It's a labor to ascend into that high place.
Then he got captivated by that teacher. What was his name? Bursitis or something? That captivated his mind, and for a couple of years he was deterred from his mission because his teacher captivated his mind so much he thought he was the source of all knowledge, and then he found out he wasn't. So he overcome his teacher, tied him up, and left him. No, I think that's a cute story.
So would the Book of Mormon be the mark of the beast, the Mormons?
Well, any book can be. The Bible could be the mark of the beast. Even DK's works could be the mark of the beast. If you approach it like, I won't do anything unless I look. And if DK says I can't do it, then I won't do it. Instead of just reading whatever it is, the light that is there, and registering it with the light within, and then go by what the soul within tells you to do. But whenever you have an exterior thing that you're following to the exclusion of the voice within, if you follow that above the voice within, even if it's DK or even if it's the words of Jesus in the Bible, it doesn't really matter what it is. That's the mark of the beast. So it's amazing. It's an amazing thing when you realize that you can be following the words of Jesus literally and have the mark of the beast, you know, or DK or ancient wisdom or any writing.
Person, your prophet, priest, or king.
Right, but if you're free from the mark of the beast, you can expose yourself to the devil himself and maybe learn something from it because you only go by what your soul within verifies as being true. Because even the most corrupt person says some things that are true. So
yeah,
okay,
even Hitler created the Volkswagen.
yeah, and that what's the name of that super highway in Germany? The Autobahn. He started that going too. So
Autobahn.
You know, even Hitler did a couple things that wasn't too bad. So so the person that doesn't have the mark of the beast can find the truth wherever it happens to lie. And it's one of the things that I've said in the past is the true seeker can find more truth in the National Enquirer than many people can in the Bible, you know, and if they go by the light of the soul. Okay, we've gone over time here, but I appreciate everybody. Is there any comments or questions before we wrap it up?
Just keep your hands clean. Judge Judy says, if you come to court with unclean hands, I won't listen to a thing you say.
Okay.
So
well, we welcome the two new people today, Pamela and Solomon. And oh, it looks like Rachel is here for the second time. Good to see you, Rachel.
Good to see you.
Yeah. And it's good to see everybody else. So we will see you next Sunday at 10 in the morning, all being well.
Okay.
Or Tuesday. Tuesday is 5:30 this Tuesday.
Yeah, and if you have anything to announce, like Curtis, or feel free. If you're trying to get something going.
Tuesday, 5:30, the second labor of Hercules riding the Cretan bull.
Okay.
Well, I do.
Hey, you ought to go to some bar, Curtis, and ride some bull while you're teaching that. That'd be funny.
Are you going to put a reminder on the Facebook page?
Yeah, it's on Messenger. Is that where it is? It's on A Gathering of Lights. No, it's just on Facebook.
Well, you can post it. You can post it in the molecular group if you want.
I have it posted on my website about Tuesday night.
Yeah. My Violet Flame.
May the force be with you.
Amen.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Live long and prosper.